Okay.
We're plotting a course.
Right.
Plotting a course to
Course
a
laid
review. A review of Star Trek Prodigy.
Star Trek Prodigy. So I was thinking about calling these segments away missions.
Away missions.
Away
sure.
missions.
Okay.
So this is our first away mission segment. My thought was to have it be in a shuttle, like have the background be a shuttle, but we don't have that set up yet. So
Yeah, and like we just saw it, and we just kind of want to put this together.
yeah,
and, like,
try to get it out today and like
Right.
get engagement with people, see what they think and things like that. So
Absolutely.
first impressions of Star Trek Prodigy, which, if you're not aware, is a brand new Star Trek cartoon on Paramount Plus, and I believe it's airing on Nickelodeon as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean it's actually made by Nickelodeon, and so I guess like one of their studios or something like that.
Something I'm not 100% on that. I'll have to look a little bit more into it. I glanced on Wikipedia before we sat down, but I didn't have a chance to really do a deep dive, so I can't say a whole lot of things for certain about it.
Sure.
Other than one thing that I can say for certain about the show is the musical composer is the same person who did the 2009 Star Trek movies.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is funny because while I was watching it, I did not know. And I was like, you know what? This theme, when they were flying through with the Protostar for the first time, I'm like, this kind of sounds like 2009 Star Trek. And now it makes sense why it did. So,
yeah, it
not
definitely
bad.
It sounded very Star Trek.
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all. The sound design was actually really good. That was something that I liked. So my overall first impression, I thought it was pretty good for what it was. I thought it did a pretty good job.
Yeah. I think because it's something that we were talking about just right before we came in here. You were bringing up how there's a point to this show, and I think it does it quite well. And that point is largely to introduce new viewers, specifically younger viewers, into the world of Star Trek, and they do it rather cleverly, I think.
Yeah, me too. So like what it seems to me that they're trying to do is they're trying to bring in young viewers who don't know anything about Star Trek, and the way that they're doing that is they're taking a crew that knows nothing about the larger Star Trek universe. So not only is the audience coming in from it with very little background knowledge on Star Trek, the target audience anyway, not necessarily the larger audience, but
right.
also the firsthand point of view, the people that we're experiencing in the show have the same experience with Star Trek. So it's
Right.
going to educate the viewers as well as the characters in the show on the larger Star Trek universe, and I think that that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I mean, there's been a constant problem with trying to make Trek accessible because, you have decades and decades and decades worth of material. How do you get new people invested to like dip their toes into like this huge pool? And obviously they try to do something different with Discovery to make it more like, I guess, trendy or something. Some people like it. We don't.
Yeah, well, we won't go too far into Discovery because
Right.
this is about Prodigy right now.
But
Yeah.
This is an interesting way to actually do it, where it's using a very unique and new concept, and I really, really enjoy that. And it's even more impressive to me because I don't usually really enjoy much of like the newer stuff that's being offered for Star Trek. I actually did like this. Not to say I don't have criticisms. I think what we should probably do is like let's just broadly discuss it before we get into like some of the stuff that might be considered spoilers.
Sure. Go ahead and talk first. I got to turn my mic off for a second.
Okay. So some of the basic criticisms I might have is that the art direction is very much similar, as we were discussing, to like the Clone Wars from Star Wars, and some of the character designs feel very Star Warsy as well, and that took me a little bit out of it. However, by the time you get to really the big hook at the end of the episode, I didn't care about that anymore. I got the point. I really understood what they were trying to do, so it really didn't bug me anymore. Like the Star Wars feel is kind of melted away, and I'm like, okay, I think we're good.
Right, and I think if they can manage to kind of stay away, like even if they go into it occasionally, that's okay. But like if they lean heavy into like, oh, half of the episode is going to feel like Star Wars every single time, I don't necessarily know. I will say my criticism is that the art vein is definitely the vein of the animation is in the vein of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, very much.
those animated Star Wars shows. Which, you know what, that's fine. And if it draws in the viewers that you're looking for, that's great. And it's not a huge
Sure.
criticism. It's definitely not a reason not to watch the show.
Oh, no. It was like an initial thing that kind of took me out. But by the time the episode was over, I'd made peace with it.
Sure,
So,
and the action in the very beginning definitely felt very Star Wars. It kind of felt like Han's, like the solo movie.
yeah.
That when he's trying to escape, that like a lot of that kind of felt similar. The speeder stuff. things like
Sure.
that.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. That's a pretty good comparison. Yeah.
And then again, like by the time that they got to the ship, I don't think that I think it needs to be known. None of our stuff is ever going to be spoiler free. So if you guys are if you come into our stuff looking for a spoiler free anything, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but just in case, spoiler alert now.
Right. So that we can kind of not be jackasses or
And
whatever.
just to go watch it. It is actually worth watching.
it's
But then
good
come
if you
back
haven't seen
and-
it.
Then come back and finish this video.
Of course, there are people in areas that can't.
True.
They can't watch it, and so they come and they absorb the content this way. So, but by the time that they get to the protostar, that's where it really starts feeling like Star Trek. Maybe a little bit like I made the comparison of the main robot guy kind of feels like General Grievous.
Sure. Well, let's give some context then. So the first episode takes place on, I think it's a giant asteroid or something.
Yeah, it's some kind of mining colony on an asteroid or something.
And basically everybody is a slave except for a bunch of robots, a big bad guy robot that looks like General Grievous, and then some old dude in a vat and his daughter.
Right.
And everybody else is a slave, and nobody has translators, so nobody knows what each other is speaking because they're all a bunch of different species.
That's how they keep them. They keep control of everybody. They don't let them communicate, so everybody speaks a different language, and nobody can
Right.
understand what anyone's saying.
Right, and
Which is a cool concept.
it is a really interesting concept. And there's a monkey wrench thrown into the plans because there's something called Fugitive Zero that's running around, kind of sabotaging things. And through unlikely turns of events or whatever, a bunch of these ragtag group of people come together and find a Federation starship inside this asteroid. And they basically have to come together, become a crew in order to escape together.
And they have to do it really quickly because there's a time limit. The guy has 24 hours. He was told that he was going to find this Fugitive Zero who ends up being a Medusan. Yeah, a Medusan,
yeah.
an energy being that you can't look upon, otherwise you'll go crazy. And Del, I think, is our main character's name.
Something like that. It's going to take a couple episodes before I remember anybody's name.
And it wasn't that he was forgettable or anything. It's just that the names. I remember that the daughter's name is Gwen, and then Rock Talk, I think, is the big rock girl.
Yeah.
Or kid. I don't know that they necessarily specify that it's
Sure.
a girl.
Sure.
But Del, I think, is our main character's name. He has given basically the main bad guy is his word that he will find Fugitive Zero, the Medusan, and turn it in. Otherwise, they're going to kill him.
Yep.
So they have one day to basically put this ship together because that's his time frame, and so that they can escape and get out of there.
And they do.
And they do.
And they do. And then the big hook for the series is after they're free, they accidentally trip something on the ship.
They say the word help. And,
that's right. Yeah.
And it cues a command in the computer that cues up hologram Janeway.
Yeah, Captain Janeway from the Voyager.
Voiced by Kate Mulgrew. So some background on the show. It takes place 5 years after Voyager has gotten back from the Delta Quadrant.
Okay.
The Protostar, the ship in it, has been sent from Earth after Voyager has gotten back.
Right.
They don't explain what its mission is yet. I'm sure that we'll find out. Some interesting theory that I read was that they are sending these ships out to basically like try to find people that the caretaker sent to the Delta Quadrant, so that they can rescue other people that have been sent out. So.
Okay, that could be interesting.
Yeah, so it's a fairly neat concept.
Yeah, so you'll have this ragtag group of aliens from different species learning about each other and learning about the ship. And the ship actually has its own personality in the form of Janeway, who's now going to teach them about basically Star Trek.
Right.
And it's a really clever concept.
It is. So as the audience, we all get to learn about Star Trek as well. So should be a pretty good time. I mean,
Sure.
I'm going to probably end up watching every episode.
I'm going to give it a couple more episodes to really cement how I feel about it. But I am optimistic more so than I have been in a while. A couple of nerd things. There's a bad nerd thing. There's a Tellarite in it, which doesn't make any sense.
Well, there's a Tellarite and there's a Cation. So it's supposed to take place in the Delta Quadrant, and we're seeing a lot of Alpha Quadrant life.
Right.
On this prison planet that it turns out that what is it, a Kazon? Which is a Delta Quadrant.
That's a Delta Quadrant race.
So this Kazon is capturing criminals and orphans and selling them to the Diviner, who is
the big bad
guy on the comet, as slave labor, basically. And there seems to be quite a bit of Alpha Quadrant life for being in the Delta Quadrant. I don't know.
That is, it's kind of a nerd gripe, but I mean,
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not, it's definitely not the worst thing. And like I said, if they find a creative way to bring in young children or even like adults who like animated shows,
sure, yeah, then I mean, that nerd complaint means absolutely nothing.
Absolutely
and
nothing.
It serves a purpose. The other thing, though, nerdy, that I really wanted to bring up. So one of the characters is a Medusan, which is an energy being that if you see their true form can drive you insane. They first were shown in the original series. Is there in truth no beauty? And I just thought it was really interesting because that is that the person who's taking care of the Medusan is the same actress who ends up playing Dr. Pulaski in The Next Generation.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So there's like so many degrees of interconnectedness throughout it. I mean, that really doesn't mean anything, but I've always thought
it definitely means something to the people who are into it enough to watch this podcast.
Sure, yeah, for sure. And I thought that was really cool because I remember when we were getting ready for our regular podcast, and I was watching a bunch of original Trek. That, I think, was my favorite episode in season 3, and I was always wondering why they didn't do more with the Medusans. And like, here we go.
Now we get a whole series with them, so that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
For those of you that don't know, and you're just finding this because we released it about Prodigy, and you're trying to find out about the show, Jeff and I host a Star Trek podcast
on this channel.
It's here, available on YouTube in the audio form, or if you subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/eject the core for $1 a month, you can see the video version, which we're releasing. This review on the video version, our podcast looks similar to this.
Sure.
It's a lot longer, long form, things like that. So we hope that you come and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And just stay tuned for more fun, random stuff from Eject the Core.
Eject the Core.
Yeah.
So take care, everybody. Thanks for checking us out.
Go watch Prodigy.
All right.